Hi, welcome everybody to the Prescott Valley Town Council meeting of September 22nd. I call this meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome Pastor Terrell Eldreth of the St. Germain Catholic Church to the podium to give us an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, sir.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious Father, as we come before you this afternoon, we thank you for the blessings that you have provided to us already today. We thank you for the beauty of where we live and for all the blessings that you bring into our lives. As we stand here on the cusp of autumn, in about 30 minutes from now, officially happening. Father, we thank you that we look forward to a time of change in our weather and knowing that you make everything happen on your time frame. And it never deviates. So, Father, we thank you for your graciousness. We thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your might and for your glory. Father, today I pray for those who are serving us. I pray for our police officers and our firefighters. We thank you for the selfless service that they give day in and day out to protect our community and to protect our lives, protect our properties. So, Father, we pray that you would guard them, that you would guide them, that you'd give them the grace that they need to do their jobs, the strength and the courage. And Father, for those who are here to conduct your business today, for those on the platform who are elected, for those who are workers for our city, and for those who are citizens here who have plans and ideas, Father, we pray that you would allow your wisdom to permeate everybody in this room. Father, we thank you that you give to us wisdom, you give all of us intelligence, you give ideas, you give thoughts, you give opinions to us. And so, Father, as we meld those all together, help us to remember the wisdom of your word, where King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, said in Ecclesiastes that the end of a thing is better than the beginning, and the patience is better than pride. Father, we understand that when groups come together, that pride gets in the way far too often. When our opinions and our thoughts don't come together with everybody else's, and we get prideful, we get angry. So, Father, we pray that we would guard against those kinds of things. We pray that we could indeed say that in the end of these things, it will be better than the beginnings were. As we come to the last quarter of this year, Father, there will be endings. We want them to be better even than the beginnings of this year. So, Father, we pray for your grace and your guidance in this meeting now. For we pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Now I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
Vice Mayor, may I take roll call?
Yes, please. Sorry, I skipped right over you.
It's okay. Councilmember Kinzinger.
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt.
Here.
And Mayor Pluggood is not here, but we have a quorum.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to number 3. And if anybody needs agendas, they're in the back. Number 3 is proclamations. And I'm going to start with 3A, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. And Ryan, Judy, you're going to join me at the podium.
Whereas National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, NCAM, educates women about the importance of early detection for breast cancer. And whereas since NCAM's inception, mammography use has doubled and breast cancer death rates have declined. And whereas still many women do not utilize mammography at regular intervals. And whereas in recognition of the fact that mammography is the best available method of detecting breast changes that may be cancer, long before physical symptoms can be seen or felt. And whereas screening and early detection are essential to our nation's fight against breast cancer, the National Cancer Institute recommends that women aged 50 and older have mammograms every 2 years. Women who are at greater risk should talk with their healthcare providers about whether to have mammograms before age 50 and how frequently to have them. Whereas breast cancer deaths could decline further if all women aged 50 and older receive mammograms at regular intervals. Whereas the Breast Cancer Center at YRMC in Prescott Valley is a driving force in the early detection and treatment of breast cancer. And whereas by raising awareness of this disease and supporting research, we can help usher in a new era in our struggle against breast cancer. Now, therefore, I, Kelpa Gura, Mayor of the town of Prescott Valley, Arizona, do hereby declare October 2022 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month and urge all women and their families in the town of Prescott Valley to get the facts about mammography, and further commend and recognize the Breast Care Center at YRMC for their dedicated and diligence in the fight against breast cancer. Thank you.
We have a great facility here in town at YRMC. We appreciate all the work that they do, all the nurses and doctors that attack this disease. So we appreciate all of our medical providers and all those that are fighting this disease. So thank you all for coming.
Okay, now we have number 3B, Domestic Violence Awareness Month with Missy Sikora and the PD Police Department team. And Alexis Miller. You need to come up here.
Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender, and income levels, domestic violence is a widespread and affects over 4 million Americans each year. At least 1 in 3 members of our community have witnessed an incident of domestic violence. And whereas children that grow up in violent homes are believed to be abused and neglected at a higher rate than the national average. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And whereas only a coordinated community effort will help put a stop to this heinous crime. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for our community to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy services and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, I, Kelpa Gura, Mayor of the town of Prescott Valley, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all of our citizens to work together with one goal in mind, to eliminate domestic violence from our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's speaking?
Apparently I am. Wonderful. My name is Alexis. I'm with Stepping Stones Agency. Stepping Stones has provided 24/7, 365 advocacy services and safe shelter for families who are experiencing domestic violence here in our community. We've been doing so for 42 years, but we don't do that we don't do that work alone. We have the support of local law enforcement and other agencies like the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center, who wasn't able to be here. I don't see Missy anywhere. And we all work together to be able to support those families who need that support, those services, and that safe place to live. So thank you for recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Great, let's get a picture. Okay, now we have the honor of recognizing Sergeant Kevin O'Hagan. So, and Commander, you're coming too? Thank you.
Vice Mayor and Council, thank you for having us today. We're here to recognize Sergeant Kevin O'Hagan of 15 years with the Town of Prescott Valley Police Department. I'm going to read, there you go, yeah. I'm going to read a little bit about Kevin here. Sergeant Kevin O'Hagan was born and raised in Humboldt, Arizona, where he attended and graduated from Mayer High School. While at Mayer, Kevin met the love of his life, Johanna, who he's been married to for 21 years. The two have 3 amazing kids, Nolan, Taylor, and Corbin. Kevin says that his family is the greatest accomplishment in his life, and I think that's a true testament, Kevin, and that's amazing. Kevin was hired by NAU-PD as a dispatcher and eventually went to the academy in 2005 to become a police officer for NAU. In 2007, he came down here to Prescott Valley, where he spent his career as a field training officer, a canine handler, SWAT operator, firearms instructor, corporal, sergeant, range master, and now the canine sergeant. I think you've done pretty much everything. Kevin hopes of one day having another canine partner as he continues his role as a sergeant over the canine unit. Kevin's supervisor, Lieutenant Roberts, compliments Kevin on his can-do attitude, his willingness to better the agency through his contributions, and his receptive demeanor. Kevin is hardworking and always shows up to work ready to meet the challenges of the day. Kevin serves as a great role model for not only the canine unit, but the officers within the agency. Kevin takes pride in the agency and serves with a high level of honor and integrity. Kevin has been a great asset to the agency over 15 years, and we're excited to see what else he can accomplish through what he hopes to be a lengthy career with our agency. Congratulations, Kevin. I think that was a plug that you won at K9. Was that? Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kevin, congratulations, and I've worked with you for well over 15 years now, and it's been an honor. 15 years is a long time in many professions. That's an entire career, but Kevin still has a lot to give, and he shows up to work each and every day. He's out in the field with his team that are back there hooting and hollering for him, but he always finds time for his family. I think we all know that about Kevin, that he's a very amazing husband and a wonderful father to his 3 kids, and they're all here to celebrate his 15 years. So, Kevin, congratulations. They want you to give a speech, Kevin. Are you good?
Okay, so Brenda, Councilwoman Dickinson.
Thank you, Kevin, for your dedication to our community. And I know I've seen you out and about, not only doing your job, but also supporting our events and activities. And it's always with a big smile and always friendliness. And I know that the animals that you work with are going to benefit from this tender heart that you have. And thank you for all that you have done for our community. And I hope that we see you for another 15 years.
Kevin, the police department, the town of Prescott Valley is lucky to have you as a member of the police department, and they're lucky to have your whole family as members of the community. And I'll say just 10 more years. I won't ask 15, just 10. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin, or Sergeant O'Hagan, I got to call you. May I call you that? I'm Sergeant Packard, by the way. Anyway, 15 years is a lot. We're going for 20 at least, correct? Okay. You have new pooches, new dogs on your patrol, don't you? Didn't one of them get a big hit on a drug bust here recently? Yeah. Super duper. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad you folks, you police officers, are devoted. You have to be doing what you're doing. And I, for one, and I think this whole community appreciates you. And I just hope we can keep you for another, I'm not going to go for 10 years, but at least 5 more years, okay? Thank you very much.
Yes, Sergeant, thank you so much for your work with the K-9 units, and we're all rooting for you to get the K-9 back into your family, too. So just thank you for your dedication, and you have our respect and our admiration as a police officer for your dedication for everything you do, and we just truly appreciate what you've done for our community, and we're hoping to get as many years out of your wisdom too. So thank you so much, and you're a mentor to the young guys coming in, and women, I should say too. But for the young officers that come in, you're the mentor that they seek. So thank you for that, and for being a great example as a family man too. That's so important, and you do work hard for families. And so thank you so much for all you do. We appreciate it.
Sergeant, thank you for your service. I think I believe it's a tribute to you to see your team here tonight, to be able to support you. And that says a lot right there. And again, as the other day we mentioned with what Cato did, you got a great team and great dogs. And if you need to come to the council to figure out how we can get another dog, just let us know, okay? But congratulations on the 15 years, okay?
Sergeant, thank you so much for your time. I'm very proud of you and your team, and all of our four-legged officers are very important to us. Thank you for everything they're doing for illegal meth and illegal fentanyl, and you guys are saving lives, for sure. Thank you. We got to get a picture.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Okay, now we have number 5, scheduled announcements and presentations, Miss Gloria Gross. And while she's coming up, I'd like to give a shout out to Court Minor, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Humboldt Unified School District and a fellow board member on the chamber with me.
Thank you. I was supposed to do that, but you did it for me. I appreciate that. Is Scott Jack here? No. How about Leon and Chef Rodriguez? My deepest apologies. Neither one of my new members showed up tonight. So I am so sorry. It's just one of those nights, I guess.
Tell us who they are.
Scott Jack with Fire Safety Essentials. And then Kybella, Chef Rodriguez, and Leon were supposed to be here. And they're on the agenda for later for liquor license. So hopefully they'll show up for that. So my deepest apologies. I'm enjoying retirement life, but I love coming back and doing little stuff like this. So thank you, everyone.
We always love seeing you. Thank you for being here. So I have to introduce Missy Sequoia, who came in. She is here for Domestic Violence Month, but she does a million things. She does Castle for Kids, she does Domestic Violence, Wife Act, she does everything. So thank you for being here. You know, why don't you come out and give a shout out for your event coming up on October 15th. Thank you, April.
I was going to.
And I apologize that I am late.
That's okay.
So I ran a little bit over. My name is Missy Sikora. I'm the director of the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center, which is a program of Prevent Child Abuse Arizona. We serve victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, stalking, human trafficking, elder abuse. We've been providing services to Yavapai County citizens for the past 22 years. We partner with all the municipalities, and the town of Prescott Valley is our most beloved and cherished partner. We're located in the old Prescott Valley Library, if any of you know where that is on Bob Drive. Last year in 2021, we gave services to over 1,300 victims from Yavapai County. And that's therapy and legal assistance, SANE exams, forensic interviews, advocacy, therapy groups, art groups. So we do a vast array of everything. And everything is free of charge to the victims. So we have one annual fundraiser, and that's called Hope Still Floats. That will be October 15th. It's a speakeasy theme, which is going to be super fun at the Sam Hill Warehouse in Prescott. Sheriff Dave Rhodes and his wife are our MCs. Judge Anna Young will be receiving an award that night. And it's just going to be a wonderful event, a silent auction, live auction. And if you're interested in attending and want tickets, you can go to our website at yfac.org.
And October 4th.
October 15th.
But there's one, October 4th is Take Back the Night. Let's invite everybody.
I just like mine. Yeah, well, gosh, totally took advantage. Okay, and then October, yes, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have a group in Yavapai County called the Community Coordinated Response Team. That group is, and my center is part of that group. We are hosting a domestic violence awareness event called Take Back the Night. It will be right out here at the amphitheater. It's a wonderful event. We have Sheila Polk is our MC. We have some wonderful speakers, a wonderful survivor speaker, and it's just a time for our communities to come out and let people know that are going through this situation, that they're not alone, and that the community is here to support them and take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, number 6, call to the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters listed on the agenda or solely on matters within the jurisdiction of the town. Any person wishing to address the council must register their name with the town clerk prior to commencement of the meeting. The council's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Such remarks shall be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the mayor. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate you coming. We appreciate your comments. I know sometimes it's not easy stepping up to the podium, but we do have a timeline, and you are more than encouraged to make an appointment with any of us or the town manager by calling our offices. So let's start with Steve Karos. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, and good evening, Town Council and town staff. I'm Steve Carroll's Pronghorn Ranch, and I'm here tonight to make a very important request of council on behalf of the citizens of Prescott Valley. Prescott Valley is one of about 91 municipalities in the state. Most of these municipalities, as well as tribal nations, have voted to set in place a code of conduct and ethics for elected officials, with the primary focus being on the fiduciary responsibilities of the members of town, city, and tribal councils. These codes are virtually the same across the board and includes citizen oversight commissions. These codes were generated out of the Arizona League of Cities some time ago. Indeed, Phoenix adopted their code nearly 10 years ago in 2013. However, Prescott Valley has yet to do so, and my request is that this essential code be adopted with no further delay. I understand that this council and town staff are very busy, but this does not negate the responsibility to be alert for what the code refers to, and I quote, even the appearance of self-serving, of conflicts of interest, and other fiduciary shortcomings, especially those that would cost the taxpayers unnecessarily. Considering such appearances or optics, I am particularly concerned about recent campaign donations to a member of this council that just don't look right. The owner of a local heavy construction company made a relatively large campaign donation. Meanwhile, an FOIA request reveals that during the past 2 years, this same company has been awarded 10 contract bids worth a minimum of $13.5 million, and also was awarded an additional 4 lucrative annual construction contracts. These 14 contracts also appear to have unusual bid tiers, which may include subcontractors bidding. Again, the optics are not good. Unfortunately, there are at least 4 other campaign donations that also have these questionable optics. And if you want details on those, please give me a call. There just isn't any valid reason for this council to delay any further in adopting this code in line with so many other Arizona municipalities, and must do so forthwith. We are, after all, the government of, by, and for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. My speakers went away. Oh, no, there we go. Mr. Jeremy Mazan. Welcome, Mr. Mazan.
Good evening. My wife spoke at the last town council meeting, simply giving a concise informational speech about federal law. What is and is not protected by the First Amendment. Rightly so, distributing sexually explicit content is not protected and is clearly against federal law. I was shocked at the mayor's passionate response in support of ensuring children have access to sexually explicit content by our mayor. I have never witnessed him more excited to defend a position. Morally, it was reprehensible. And as a leader, he failed. A responsible leader would have tried to turn down the temperature, not instigate by responding in such a passionate way. His response made him unfit to lead as he attempted to escalate things by asking for police reports. He said that police would laugh at legitimate reports of violations of federal law, laugh at evidence. Is that an attempt to undermine the public trust of our police? In doing so, the mayor has lost my trust. He is dismissive of federal law, showing he does not respect the rule of law, insinuating Prescott Valley is above it. I don't think it is, and I don't think any of you believe that. He lacks the integrity to lead, as he lied that the books were only in the adult section when these books were on front display for weeks, including images of nudity on the front covers. And he also lied that they were only in the adult section when they are specifically in the children's section. An example of this is a double-page spread of nudity that's written for 10-year-olds that is upstairs right now. He lied that this is something that concerned citizens only heard about on a talk show or saw on the news, rather than a response to the library proudly displaying pornographic books at their entrance. He tried to shield these immoral actions by using a wonderful, caring woman, Mrs. C. My wife and I love her and the library, as do our children. They came just yesterday. The mayor should not try to confuse the public by using the wonderful things the library does as an excuse for sexual content being illegally distributed to children. And how dare others insinuate that Americans fought wars for the imaginary right to distribute pornography to children. As a veteran, I find that horrible. Prescott Valley Council, most of you have been mostly quiet about this issue. Some of you use the platform of traditional values and safety to get elected. But when it comes to actually protecting our kids, you become passive and you become quiet. He was the only one that spoke back to, 7 comments last time? Many of you ran as conservatives. What is there that is more important than conserving the innocence of our children? There are 9 children in Prescott Valley, 14 down to 10 months, with my last name, between my siblings and I. This is not just random people spouting out. These are our children that we're trying to protect. May I have one more minute just as a call to all of you?
Sure.
Let me find my spot. I challenge all of you to speak out against exposing our minors to harmful content. It should be easy to back federal law. The law is on your side. This isn't a difficult decision. You do not have to tie your morals and your legacy to the ill-advised and illegal actions of our mayor. Mayor Palguda's legacy will forever be tied to his stance supporting using taxpayer dollars to provide children of all ages illegal access to pornography. This doesn't have to be your legacy as well. It's time for some of you to step in leadership and say, hey, we're a council. We don't have to sit back and allow pornography to be distributed.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mazan. Mr. Chase. Welcome.
Okay. We still have the major problems on East Prescott Highway, even though we're not changing the name. That wasn't a very good turnout. Everything seems to be set in concrete in dealing with Prescott Valley. I wanted them to move the speed bumps. I love the speed bumps. Not my issue. My issue is they're almost in the middle of my driveway. Also my neighbors on down, all five of the other five, okay? Wasn't a good positioning of those. 15, 20 feet either side, happy campers. Speaking of the speed bumps, they've been my entertainment for the last 2 weeks since we've gotten them, with people flying over them. Some people stop. Other people go real slow over it, and then because on my side of the street headed south, we're the last ones, they frickin' floor it. So there's going to be a major wreck at Sunset because the people crossing Sunset can't get across. They have bullseyes on them. There's nothing like first thing in the morning having a diesel truck with a tractor exhaust on it, flooring it down to Sunset, and they keep going. Of course, it turns into county property then. Probably a third of them now are not even stopping. They fly over them. And again, they are, like I've always said, 95% of them don't live on our street or in our neighborhood. They're all going back and forth. So now that's what they do. They just fly right over it, and pretty soon there'll be a few bumpers and stuff around because I do hear them scraping when they go over them. I've been called everything but a white man the last 2 weeks, okay? I can take it. I don't care, okay? They threatened my wife. Stopped in front of my house and physically threatened her last Thursday, okay? They're all driving aggressive. I don't care if they know I'm the one that's been behind all this stuff. I can take it. But they're not going to be threatening my wife, okay? I've talked to the PD, set in stone, set in concrete, okay? We still need help with the speeding because they're still doing 45 down there, and they can fly over the speed bumps, okay?
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next up, Chief Freitag with CAFMA. You're going to educate us, I understand.
Vice Mayor, Council, thanks for this opportunity. I apologize for my dress this evening. I just had lower back surgery last week, and so it's a little uncomfortable right now. I'm here tonight because I want to talk to you just a little bit about fire district funding in comparison to municipal funding. Some may have seen some signs for Prop 310, which is a 1/10 cent sales tax statewide to help fund fire districts across the state of Arizona. It's about 1 penny for every $10 that's spent. But there is confusion when you look between our closest neighbors that have a municipal fire department and here where we have a fire district and how those operations are funded. So when we look at Prescott, they receive a majority of their funding through sales tax. They also have property tax, state shared revenues, Prop 443, which helped fund their pension liability, fees for service, impact fees, and then COVID relief funds. Fire districts like ours are funded by property tax that's limited by Prop 117. And there you go. That's pretty much how we're funded. We do get some fees for service, but that would be it. So that does create some challenges for us, especially since our property taxes are limited under the Prop 117 rule, and property values never reset upon sale of the home. We're tied to the limited value. How does that create challenges for us? If we look at Prescott Valley right now, we know we're one 24-hour engine short. We need that in the system. It's going to take us 4 years of incremental tax increases to hire enough personnel to staff that one 24-hour engine. So it's going to be 4 years before we get the engine in service. We still won't have the revenue enough to build the station. So that does create a lot of challenges for us moving forward. If we're one engine short today, where are we going to be 4 years from now based on current development trends? Because in the state of Arizona, as far as fire districts go, development doesn't pay for development. The property tax owners within the district shoulder the entire financial burden to fund the fire district. So there's a lot more information on this. You can find out more about the prop if you're interested looking at the Secretary of State's website. There's a lot more information about fire district funding on our website, which is cazfire.gov. I'm always available to answer questions specifically about how we're funded, but I cannot advocate for or against any proposition. So I just wanted you to know that it's going to be on the ballot. Here's some of the challenges we face in providing services to Prescott Valley moving forward. We can continue providing the service we have, but meeting the increased demand is a significant, serious challenge for us under our current funding structure.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 7, council communications summary of events. And I'm going to start with Councilmember Kienzinger.
Nothing to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope that I'm allowed to say this. Next week on Thursday, there's a gentleman walking through our town. He's going over the Peavine Trail. He is trying to help out the pancreatic cancer research facilities. His name is Kenny, and so he has Kenny Walks Across America. And he made it through New Mexico about a week ago, and he's already halfway through our state. So if anybody likes to hike and wants to walk, if you can go to his website or Facebook page, it's Kenny Walks Across America, and he'll be in our area next Thursday.
Thank you. Councilmember Packard. Councilmember Hepperly.
Oh, you don't have anything? Okay. So first of all, Missy, it was my fault because when she said tell about your event, and then I'm the one that shouted out the 15th because I actually have the speakeasy as one of the things I was going to talk about. And so that's where my mind went. And then she's like, no, the other one, because you have so many great events going on. So I won't go into Hope Still Floats since you already covered it. But again, that website is yfac.org. And then 2 weeks ago, I did say I wasn't going to talk about Dancing for the Stars anymore, but I lied. Because it's over, and the event total, all 10 celebrity dancers, raised $465,000 for the Boys and Girls Club of Central Arizona. So it's a huge event, and there's a quick turnaround this time because they're trying to get the event moved back to the spring. And so dancers are going to be announced pretty quickly, and they're definitely going to need all the help that they can get fundraising because it's hard to follow up a big year like that. Okay, and then library business. Tomorrow is the last day to sign up as an adult volunteer for our epic live action adventure event. And so the easiest way to do that is just to call Colleen over at the library, 928. Well, it's actually Arts and Culture Coordinator. She got a promotion I always forget about. 928-759-3127. That was already filled up. All the teen spots were already filled, and they actually opened additional spots so more teens could participate, which means that we need more adult volunteers.
Are you still looking for sponsors?
Yeah, well, and Colleen has information for sponsors too. So if you're not ready to get your LARP on, but you still want to contribute in some way, well, definitely, because we're providing, it's an all-day event. So all the teens and adult volunteers have lunch provided, dinner provided, costuming, all of those good needs. And then I think next Thursday, September 28th, I'm actually speaking at the State of the Verde River Watershed Conference over at Cliff Castle Casino on behalf of the Upper Verde River Watershed Protection Coalition. So wish me luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dickinson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. A couple of things going on this weekend. There's a dog show going on at the Findlay Toyota Center. Friday, Saturday, and I believe on Sunday as well. It's of Westminster caliber if you follow dog shows at all. The activity is, or the events on all 3 days are free unless you're entering a dog. But anyway, it looks like it should be a lot of fun, and we very rarely get free events out at the Findlay Toyota Center, so be sure and put that on your calendar. And then on Saturday, I am going to be a judge for a chili contest at the community fair. Kendall seems to think that's funny, that I might have a stomach of steel, but I don't. And so we'll see how this goes. The community fair will be held at the LDS Church at 7073 Pronghorn Ranch Parkway in Prescott Valley. And it is open to the public. And anyway, like April, wish me luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davison.
Vice Mayor and members of the council. So a couple things, just a quick update for members of our public that are here and watching online. As part of the budget that the council approved, one of the items was focused on doing a new master drainage plan for the town. So we have just initiated that process, and we'll be bringing back information to the council on updates, but there will be opportunities for members of the public to also weigh in and give feedback as we progress through a whole new comprehensive view of the town's drainage system. And then there'll be opportunities, creative opportunities that we're going to be looking at in terms of recharge, creative recharge projects. And so very excited about that. Second is one of the major items that was not only contained within the budget, but is also part of the town's strategic plan, is our striping and crosswalk initiative. So we will be continuing on with that phase 2 plan. So the public will continue to see additional striping taking place throughout the community. And we have additional areas that we're going to be studying and looking at for inclusion in this in the future. And then the third thing that I'm really excited about as well is we just kicked off a partnership with Yavapai College where our staff are going through a leadership training program. So over the next 8 months, members of our staff in each of our different departments are engaging in a whole comprehensive array of leadership, ethics, training. So very excited on that front, and it's in partnership with Yavapai College. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Okay, consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Council, do we need to pull any agenda item? Or can I have a motion? Looks like I have a motion.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And a second.
I second.
Thank you. Please vote.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
And I'd like to introduce our new Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Bruce Evans. Okay, new business, item 10A. New Series 10 liquor license, Green Tree Inn. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, ma'am. This is an application for a Series 10 liquor license for the Green Tree Inn located at 7875 East State Route 69, right next to Dennis. The notice for the public hearing was posted at the location for 20 days, and our office did not receive any comments pro or con recommendation. Town staff council recommend approval to the liquor board. And this is
So I'm going to open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak on 10A? Additional comments for this liquor license? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. and ask for a motion. We have a motion.
Madam Vice Chair, I would like to make a motion to recommend to ADLL&C approval of the application for Series 10 liquor license for Green Tree Inn at 7875 East State Route 69 by electronic vote.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dickinson. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Item 10B, new Series 12 liquor license, Ciao Bella. Staff report, please.
This is another application, but this time for a Series 12 liquor license for Ciao Bella, located at 7025 East Florentine Road, Suite 102, formerly Grumpy Sicilian. The notice for the public hearing was posted at the location for 20 days, and our office, again, did not receive any comments, pro or con recommendation.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak on a Series 12 liquor license for Ciao Bella. Now, Ciao Bella is the restaurant that went in where Grumpy Sicilian was. Same menu. Seeing nobody, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion. Looks like I have a motion.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the ADLL&C approval of the application for Series 12 liquor license for Ciao Bella at 7025 East Florentine Road, number 102, by electronic vote.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. 10C, ordinance number 2022-910, amending mayor's authority.
Madam Vice Chair, council members, if I could just indicate, this is basically just cleaning up our code. During the pandemic, many cities in Arizona used authority that they had by state law in their ordinances and their codes that allowed them to close businesses. As a result of that, the legislature wasn't happy with the fact that communities, cities had that authority. And so now that the pandemic is essentially over, they have adopted legislation that removes that authority from any mayor of a city or town. So we now need to amend our code and remove that authority. And so we're proposing that we do that. First reading today, second reading at our next meeting.
And it only has to do with closing business. Otherwise, he has the authority that he had before.
He has authority, yes. In many emergency circumstances, he simply can't close a business.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will take a motion. Councilwoman Dickinson.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to read ordinance number 2022-910 by title only on two separate occasions, then place the same on final passage by electronic vote.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
Councilmember Kinzinger, your vote?
Nothing appeared. Yes.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I could also say, in Prescott Valley, never did we close a business.
I understand.
But it was something that was done in some places.
Yes, and Fatima, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 910, an ordinance of the mayor and common council of the town of Prescott Valley, a municipal corporation of Arizona, amending sections 2-2-40, powers and duties of the mayor, in Article 202, Mayor, in Chapter 2, Mayor and Council of the Town Code, to conform with recently enacted legislation prohibiting mayors of cities and towns from ordering the closure of businesses during declared emergencies. providing that all other sections of the town code not herein amended shall remain in full force and effect, providing that if any provision in this ordinance is held invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, the remaining provision shall not be affected, but shall continue in full force and effect, and providing that this ordinance shall be effective 30 days after its passage and approval according to law.
Thank you. 10D, Final Development Plan, FDP 22-017, GYC Machine Shop. And this is Mr. Ruby, our new Development Services Deputy Director. Welcome.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is a final development plan, FDP 2207, submitted by Russell and Inge TD owners for development of a 4,950 square foot machine shop, GY6 precision machine, on a one acre parcel located at 675 Henriksen Road in the Antelope Meadows Commercial Center. The project will meet or has met all requirements of city for a planned area development and has also met all general plan and zoning code requirements in promoting health, safety, morals, and the general welfare of the public. As you can see from the diagram above, the project is located near the intersection of 169, State Route 169. Ingress and egress will be off of 169 primarily. But there's also secondary access off of Coldwater Lane, off the little dog leg, as I call them, that will provide ingress and egress with right turn in and right turn out only onto State Route 169. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for staff? So I have one, and I think maybe Fernando may be ready for this, but I think when we looked at this originally, I had asked that we request that they put in a lateral because we're not in the business of approving septic tank.
This is true.
And that they put a lateral in for when sewer does come, or at least a mention that they will be required to hook up to sewer if it ever comes, so that they're not surprised.
Vice Mayor, thank you for that question. Council, this is a conversation we did have with the applicant after the application was turned in. There will be a lateral be placed in the location where the septic system is in order to hook up to future sewer systems, and that'll be done at the construction stage. That permit will not be issued without that lateral in place.
Perfect, thank you. But it wasn't written in our resolution. Should we add it?
We can add that as a stipulation, yes, by all means.
Can you get the town attorney some language for us, please?
Ivan, can we put that as a condition?
Yes, why don't you go ahead and just, whoever makes the motion, very simply indicate that that would be a requirement, and we'll make sure we add that to the document.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? No, thank you. You did very well, Ernesto. Welcome to the town and our team. Okay, I will take a motion.
Okay, and maybe you can assist me when we come to that verbiage. Madam Chair, I make a motion to authorize the mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, to sign resolution number 2022-2277, approving final development plan FDP 22-017.
And add a condition requiring the installation of lateral.
And add a condition for the installation of lateral by electronic vote.
Wastewater lateral?
Prior to final approval, right? Or what would it be? Certificate of occupancy, prior to certificate of occupancy.
Prior to certificate of occupancy.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Vote, please.
Councilmember Packard?
Yeah, this sucker ain't working. Anyway, yes.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Okay, great. So now we have Ms. Pell, yay, we haven't seen you for a while. Transition to ASRS retirement town employees.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about transitioning to the state retirement system. As many of you know, we have started this discussion back in, almost a year ago, but we had talked about it with council in January at our budget retreat. Basically, we are one of about 12 municipalities in the state of Arizona that do not participate in the state-run retirement system. Now, that does not include PSPRS. That's our public safety officers retirement system, which is a separate piece. This is for the rest of our staff. So with this transition, what we are proposing is that as of January 1st, the majority of our full-time staff and part-time staff would be transitioning to ASRS. Some would still stay in Mission Square for the time being, and I'll get to why in a little bit here. And then all future employees with the town would transition to ASRS or would join the town and be members of ASRS. Part of that is retention. Right now, it is hard to retain as well as attract new recruits because we are one of those few municipalities that do not participate. So it's hard to attract those qualified applicants from other municipalities in the Phoenix area and those different cities that are already part of that system because they don't necessarily want to leave that retirement system. So that's the piece that we're going to be presenting tonight to vote on, but this is going to be a multifaceted approach. And in the next couple months, we'll be coming back to you. I'll be coming back to you for additional votes on these other items, which would potentially include a contribution offset. The state retirement contribution on the employee side is higher than what they're currently paying for Mission Square retirement. And with part-time employees, the ones that would be transitioning to the system would no longer be participating in Social Security, but would be going to state retirement. And again, the contribution is significantly higher than what they're currently contributing. Additionally, the retirement health savings aspect of our current plan would be eliminated for everyone except those employees that are staying in the Mission Square plan. And to help offset that, we would like to propose a 457B match that the town could provide, and that would be available to all full and part-time employees. So retirement strategy has always been a three-legged stool approach. That's kind of an outdated term, but essentially the same standard applies, where you're looking at a pension piece, a Social Security piece, and personal savings and investments. The town does not contribute to Social Security. We're not part of that for anyone except for our part-time employees because they're not eligible for our Mission Square plan currently. So that's where the 457B match comes in. That's why we're proposing that potential option because it would help offset that Social Security retirement piece that employees aren't getting. And over time, we could look at increasing that till we get to a point where we're up to the equivalent of what that Social Security contribution would be for employees. There is a cost associated with that because it's not something we currently offer. And we are proposing that this first step be at the 4%, but we can also adjust that according to council's feelings regarding it. So with that, the employees, doesn't help when I go backwards, does it? So with that, about 60 employees would stay in the Mission Square plan, and that would be any of our full-time employees who are over or 52 years of age or older. And the reason we determined that was because those people are within 10 years of early retirement. We wouldn't want to change the script for their retirement on them this close to their retirement time. Additionally, if they previously retired from ASRS, the majority of those employees would also continue to stay in the Mission Square plan. And that's about 60 employees across the town. As far as those going into the state retirement system, be any of those who are under the age of 52 or those who are over that age who have previously contributed and not withdrawn their contributions. So if somebody had 10 years of service at another entity that was part of the ASRS plan, they would be able to continue to build on that service that they previously had, even if they're closer to retirement. And that would impact all future and part-time qualifying employees. And why it says qualifying part-time is To be part of ASRS, they do have to have a minimum of 20 hours per week for at least 20 weeks a year. And that's about 109 of our employees currently. And then there's a very small section that would be continuing to pay into Social Security, which are part-time employees who are over the age or 52 or older, who are not part of the Mission Square plan and who are not eligible for the ASRS plan due to that. And then in the future, all seasonal and temporary employees would continue to be in Social Security, as would elected officials. So as far as contribution rates, as you can see there, the middle two columns show the comparison between employees enrolled in Mission Square and those enrolled in ASRS. And it's a pretty equitable benefit when we go across. It's just where the contributions are coming from that's the big difference. It's the employee contributions that are higher on the ASRS side as opposed to the Mission Square side where the town contributions are actually lower. So with that, the action that you all are taking tonight actually has a savings of about $20,000 for the town. However, what we're proposing, because our contribution rate on the town side would decrease. But that's why we're looking at those other options that do have a increase in cost associated with them, including the contribution offset of 3% for full-time and 6% for part-time employees transitioning to ASRS. That's about $85,000. Now, these are amounts for the rest of this fiscal year. So that is just for January through June. And then if we were to remove the RHS plan, that would be a savings townwide of about $115,000. And then the 457 with the up to 4% match, and that is worst case scenario as far as every employee electing a 4% match, which is probably not going to happen. We would allow employees to choose any increment, whether it's a 1%, 2%, 3%, based on their individual situation, but it gives them the flexibility to decide that. And that would be about $330,000 for the rest of this fiscal year from January to June. So the net change is around $280,000, which we would expect a large portion of it would be covered by salary savings just from the vacancies that we've had. And we would potentially, when we bring those other actions back to council that have the cost increase element, we would possibly allow or propose a transfer from contingency up to a certain amount to cover that change. There are implications in future fiscal years. Obviously, when we start doing this, then that cost would continue for those future years as well. So the next steps tonight is the approval of the resolution and the actual application to ASRS to officially become members. Their board has to review and accept us as a member additionally. And then following that, we would get the approval to join the system from the board and conduct employee education sessions so our employees know what is coming and how this impacts their personal situation. And those additional actions would come in October or November for the contribution offset, RHS changes, and any 457 match, along with amended plan documents for our current Mission Square agreement. And then January 1st would be the effective date of the majority of those changes. And with that, that was a lot of information, so I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Council, question or comments? Councilwoman Schumacher?
I have a question, just so that everybody who is listening and who may not be aware, how many employees do we have in our town?
We have right around 306 employees or full-time equivalents. This won't impact around 95 are public safety sworn employees.
Thank you.
Councilman Packard.
Yes, how many other municipalities in the state participate in this?
79 of the 91.
Wow.
And of the ones, we're one of 12 that aren't. 2 of them have their own retirement systems. That would be Phoenix and City of Tucson. And then everyone else is part of a 401A system similar to what we currently have for our other employees.
We're
But
kind
they're
of the
small
tail
towns.
end Charlie then, aren't we? Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's typically, we're one of the larger towns that is not part of that system, so.
Councilwoman Hepperly.
Thank you, Katie, for your tireless work and everything that you do. Because I know there's a whole other thing that you're working on the public service side. I know because my husband brings the drama on a regular basis. But the way I see it is that you get what you pay for. And this is just one step in the direction of Prescott Valley showing that we value our employees and we have great employees and we want to continue to have great employees. And so whatever cost we may be incurring this year or into the future, it's an investment and one that I'm happy to make. So thank you.
Katie, thank you so much for this. I just want to clarify for the public on the 457B match. If an employee decides to only put 1% in, then the town only puts 1%.
Correct.
It's a match for match.
Correct, Vice Mayor.
And the other thing I want to echo is that we've been kind of behind because we don't have this retirement system, and a lot of people have looked at our job ads and not applied because we don't have that benefit. And so it's very important to have this because we want to have a competitive team and a competitive benefits package. So thank you very much for your work on this. I know it wasn't easy. I'd like to recognize Town Manager Davison because he worked so hard on this, pulled strings and did everything. I'm very proud of you. Thank you. Okay, so I will take a motion on this, please. Okay, it looks like I have a motion.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, seconded by a motion to authorize the mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, to sign resolution number 2022 through 2279, adopting a supplemental retirement plan pursuant to ARS 38-729, and entering into an agreement with the Arizona State Retirement System to administer said plan by electronic vote.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, please vote.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, number 10F, Town Legislative Priorities, Consideration and Possible Action. Mr. Davison.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, tonight with us, we have two guests who are lobbyists, external lobbyists with Tri-Advocates. So tonight they're going to have kind of two parts to this presentation. The first will be a recap of this past legislative session, so they'll give us an overview of all of the bills that were passed, some highlights that came out of some of the items that the governor approved, and then a little bit of a preview, if you can, out with your crystal ball of what the next session will look like. And then the most important part to this is going to be what we're asking you to consider and approve tonight is an authorization that gives Tri-Advocates the ability to, when they're dealing with legislators, working with some of the various committees, that they've already got pre-approval from the town on the areas where we are most concerned. So it's going to be things that are in alignment with the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, things that would in any way impact local control, items where the legislature wants to diminish the local control of the town council, housing, transit, economic development, water. So we've included quite an array of different things that will enable Tri-Advocates to act quickly when they're dealing with individual legislators and the governor's office. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Reese and Lourdes Pena, who are going to give our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Welcome.
Davidson.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. It's truly our pleasure. I'm Julie Reese, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Lourdes Pena, and we're excited about this presentation tonight. I think Mr. Davidson really covered the agenda, so we'll jump right in the interest of time. When we talk about the 2022 Arizona Legislature, we just wanted to give an overview. I mean, there are 90 members in the legislature, 30 in the Senate, and 60 in the House. And as you can see from our slide, there were razor-thin Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate this year. So Republicans had majorities in the House and the Senate, as well as controlled the executive with Governor Doug Ducey. And that set the groundwork for a lot of productive activity during the 2022 regular session. Our 90 members of the legislature served 2-year terms. So this was the second regular session for those members. The last regular session, all 90 seats are on the November ballot. So you can see a lot of bills introduced, and at 166 days in the session, this session actually tied as the 5th longest in the history of the state of Arizona. So marathon session, Lourdes and I spent a lot of quality time at the Capitol this year. Of the bills introduced, about a fourth of those bills were actually passed. And you can see from the graphic that 96% of the bills enacted were introduced by Republican sponsors. So Republican bills definitely fared better than those bills introduced by Democrats. The Governor Ducey only vetoed 4 bills this session. So it just demonstrates that there was a lot of agreement between the legislature and the governor on the bills that were approved. Just moving quickly to the session highlights, there was a $5.3 billion budget surplus, unprecedented in the history of our state. But that amount of money yielded some acrimony within caucuses on both sides of the aisle. But the tight margins that I shared with you on the previous slides actually yield a bipartisan budget, which was very historic for our state. And that bipartisan budget brought forth a lot of important investment in infrastructure and things that Prescott Valley cares about. So we're excited to delve into that in more specifics later on in the presentation. During the COVID, there's been a lot of talk about the Great Resignation, people leaving the workforce. That also held true at the legislature. We had an all-time high of 13 vacancies between the first regular session and the second regular session at the legislature. We've never experienced anything like that before. So we saw 11 new legislators coming in midstream to try to, develop relationships, get up to speed on the policies. That's a big learning curve to take mid-session. And then we saw 2 members that switched over from one body to the other. So a lot of turnover mid-session. The 2020 census also resulted in redistricting. So all 30 districts were redistricted, and so every member who is running for re-election in this cycle is running in a new district. And some of those incumbents were actually redistricted together, which is a little bit awkward. So some of the folks that lost their August primary were incumbents who lost to other incumbents. And finally, the election of 2022. That's really the campaign is overshadowing a lot of the policy conversations. 25 of our legislators opted not to seek re-election, 25 of 90. So huge number of folks opting out and deciding to move out of the state policy arena. I'm going to turn it over to Lourdes to talk about the state budget.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council and staff. Thank you for having us. Like Julie mentioned, it was a historic budget this year because for 2 fronts. One, it was $18 billion. When you think about that number for Arizona, that's the largest budget we've ever passed and enacted. Just to put things in perspective, a year ago, the budget that was adopted by the state legislature was $12.8 billion. So coming after a pandemic, coming after everything that entailed for economic development and businesses, to be in a place at the state capitol where they had 18 billion reasons to fight over was definitely historic, and it did result in a strong bipartisan budget. I think the last time that we had this type of bipartisanship in a budget itself was about 15 years ago. The closest time that ever happened was in 2013 when Democrats and Republicans worked together to pass a budget, worked very closely with, at the time, Governor Brewer to expand Medicaid. And that was the closest resemblance of true bipartisan budget. This time around, it was very different. Things were changing by the hour, by the half an hour, because of that negotiations that goes and takes place when you're working truly with 90 legislators and a governor, right? It took a lot more work, and it resulted in, at the end, in very good investments for different things that the town cares about and that the state generally cares about. So big overview, $1 billion invested over 3 years for water infrastructure. That was a key priority for many legislators. I think that was one of the earliest since January. Everyone saw bipartisanship there. Obviously, there's more into the details of how that's impacted and the language that went into the legislation, but the big part of it would be really to revamp WIFA and to include more money to increase their personnel. So we're going to expect to have at least 11 new FTEs that are going to be supporting all the activity for water infrastructure, as well as provide more direct grant for different municipalities and communities across the state that impact water infrastructure. So that was a huge win, and more to come. We're sure, more trailer bills, we call it, to clean things up regarding the water investments that are going to be coming up next session. Another big investment was transportation, public infrastructure. Public infrastructure typically is not a partisan issue. It's something that we all need roads. Everyone needs roads for economic development. It's really a marker. The thing that was different this year than maybe other years is a huge portion of the public infrastructure dollars were dedicated and earmarked ahead of time, rather than having ADOT, the Department of Transportation, go through their normal planning. A lot of the projects that were awarded were earmarked in the budget process. So specific communities were given specific roads or highways, and we'll talk a little more about it. Education is always a big component of the budget. One, because just public education, it's usually right next to healthcare. So those two are big spending items for the budget. This year, there was a significant amount of new dollars going to K-12 education, to the tune of almost $1 billion. More to come. The money was appropriated. The authority to spend it was not granted to school districts. So there's a lot of issues going on as we speak right now as to how our school districts are going to enact their own local budgets, because there's a constitutional limit that limits how much they can spend. And although the legislature and the governor provided additional funds, their local boards are not in a position to go ahead and spend it just yet until the legislature comes back and gives them that authority. And that could be anytime between now and January, or it could be later in January. Another big component of the budget was significant investments into border security, and we'll have a whole slide dedicated to a lot of the factors that were put into place. But some specific things to talk about, and some things that are very important to the town and the region. Some of the spending, again, public infrastructure was significant. $1 billion, that's not a small number. And out of that $1 billion that went into maintenance and expansion of highways and roads, there was also capital projects directly impacting the Prescott Valley area. One of them, adjacent the Prescott Airport Education Complex, there was capital dollars that were championed by Representative Wen to bring $600,000 for a Capitol building to support the airport activity and actually to do some training in the airport. The other part of it was the Prescott Valley State Route 69, revamping that area, and that's going to be about to the tune of $1.6 million. So the remainder of the dollars are available for different projects, like I mentioned, through different jurisdictions, as well as money that can be used for rural projects. So folks can apply to ADOT for grants to make sure they get enough funding to match their rural projects that they're working on. Another big part of the public infrastructure that goes more into the aviation space was $20 million for the aviation fund, and that's going to be, again, through ADOT. ADOT has different shovel-ready projects ready to go, and different airports throughout the state will benefit from that as well. Housing, it's the top of mind for, I think, the town and the state as well. We can, I think everyone in this room can relate to somebody who's either having a housing issue, not finding a rent, or not finding a new home when they're trying to buy a home, et cetera. So the housing needs are significant in the state. And this year, the state took initiative in providing additional funds for housing to the tune of $60 million to the state trust fund, the Housing Trust Fund, which is a combination that the Department of Housing will utilize and administer to either provide assistance for new units, assistance for services through the housing department, eviction prevention services, et cetera, the entire continuum of housing needs. So that was a huge win there, and 20 million of that was specifically earmarked and said has to be used outside of Maricopa and Pima County to make sure that the entire state can see significant benefits from it, as well as $4 million of those 60 were earmarked to provide to tribal communities as well. So another housing aspect that was pretty important as well is a $10 million homeless service grant pilot program that is created through the Department of Housing, and it would be working with municipalities to provide assistance and provide a 50% match for whichever programs the municipalities are working on, typically to help with workforce as well and make sure that the homeless population is having access to work and employment. And create opportunities, be innovative of how we can do that. The last one I wanted to mention is $2.4 million for the homeless veterans housing here in Fort Whipple. So it's a U.S. Vets program, very strong partnership here that we're able to be successful in working with your legislative delegation to secure those dollars for their project. Okay, so going on to the border security item, I think it's important to notice if we were to just say in few phrases how the budget was dedicated, it would be public infrastructure, education, water, and border security / public safety. There was a lot of attention put into those factors, those different sections. For border security this year, it was a historic investment as well, up to just over $500 million, close to $600 million investing in border security, and very different components. So a portion of that, the vast majority of it, $335 million, were dedicated and earmarked for construction of physical barrier between the Mexico border and the Arizona border. But the remainder of those dollars are really appropriated to different entities, different agencies. And talking about retention and recruitment issues, especially when it comes to our law enforcement, a good portion of that $53 million is going to be used for sheriffs and border, and for counties to use for their sheriffs to provide retention bonuses as well as recruitment bonuses, because they were experiencing severe challenges recruiting and retaining their employees. So that was a big part of it. $10 million as well will be dedicated for an effort to reduce human trafficking and make sure that we can, in hopes that you can improve the environment of the state and make sure that we limit the illicit drugs and illicit activity that's coming through the border. So a lot of items there, a lot of details for each of those, but it was definitely a commitment from the state legislature to focus on that. Now, going on to some of the bills. Julie talked about how many bills were passed to the tune of 388, I believe it was. So, I mean, that's a lot of different laws that are going to be, for the vast majority of those laws will become effective September 24. That's usually 90 days after the legislature sine dies. So many of those impact, local government to some level or degree, but we wanted to highlight a few of them. And 2107, the Emergency Powers Business Closure Repeal, that's a bill that passed, and you guys took action today, and we're very proactive in being early on to be in compliance with the new state law that would prohibit mayors from closing any businesses in the event of any declared emergency. So that was interesting to see that you guys were so proactive in working on it right away. So well done for you and for your staff to be ahead of the game. The other big issue the town has really worked heavily on is fentanyl, and how can we work and really advocate at the state capitol to make sure that new reforms are put in place to protect the youth and the communities, to make sure that we can provide law enforcement the tools they need when it comes to this crisis that we're experiencing statewide and to some degree nationwide. And we would like to commend your vice mayor for all the time that she's also dedicated to this issue and being able to come and advocate at the state capitol. We were working heavily to pass House Bill 2253. That was a bill that we supported, and it would create a statutory threshold for the amount of 9 grams of fentanyl now would be determined to be a felony and illegal. So the reason why they needed a threshold is because different jurisdictions don't have one, and it apparently creates an issue when you are confiscated with certain amounts and you don't really know what the right threshold would be for criminal activity. So they created that. But 2021, House Bill 2021 is really a bill that really took a lot of time and energy, and we commend you for your efforts and leadership here, trying to really go far and beyond to make sure that we can provide the right tools to law enforcement to how to determine what is considered a drug offense, and especially when we deal with fentanyl and other drugs, synthetic drugs. Unfortunately, that legislation didn't make it to the finish line. It was one of many others that didn't make it through. It got through committee hearing, great representation from many members of your community, and great testimony from parents and family members that really showcase the need for this. Unfortunately, politics tend to get in the way of policy sometimes, and that end up happening with our proposal. But it's never, nothing like starting right again, and it's never too early to continue those conversations. So we're already working with Representative Wen, who was the sponsor of the bill and has been a champion for this issue, to bring back together stakeholders and get early on and work with key partners to make sure that we can have legislation hopefully next year. And County Attorney Polk has been also a very strong champion and strong partner in this effort. So kudos to all of you that are very involved in this. Thank you. And then the other bill that we want to talk about is housing. So obviously housing has been a big priority. Different bills were introduced when it impacting housing, affordable housing, development of housing, et cetera. But one of the bills that was introduced and created a lot of attention, and especially with our local governments, was House Bill 2674. It turned into a housing supply study committee, but it really started as a preemption per se for zoning and permitting for local governments. The way that the bill started was definitely not something that the League of Cities and Towns would support, that mayors across the state wouldn't support, and it was an effort to bring together some reforms from the proponents of the legislation, and quickly it was very evident that more stakeholder discussions had to be had and more involvement directly with local governments that are making those planning and zoning decisions every day had to be had. So in turn, the bill was completely replaced with what we call Strike Everything Amendment, and it became a study committee, which is now happening. We're in the process of it. The proponents of it and the sponsor, Representative Kaiser, is taking a roadshow around the state to connect with local communities and connect with folks and learn about what housing issues are having. They're actually going to be nearby in Sedona next Monday, and we'll be visiting and monitoring the conversation there as well to learn what issues Sedona is experiencing in housing, but they're collecting input from everywhere across the state. So that's what happened. Now we can, transition into the political landscape and see what might happen next.
Lourdes covered a tremendous amount of ground in a very short period of time, so well done. But we did want to give you a sense of the depth and breadth of issues that the Arizona State Legislature deals with. And to Mr. Davidson's comments at the beginning of this presentation, having guiding principles in place that you have, instilled will be very helpful to us as we deal with the barrage of bills being introduced in January, because the legislature is a very dynamic body and things tend to move very quickly at times. So we're definitely excited about being here tonight to receive your guidance and direction.
So as we look at the political tea leaves, we know that Arizona is a political epicenter. I mean, if you turn on the TV or your computer, we're a barrage of social media with political ads and just an unprecedented amount of money being spent here in Prescott Valley and across the state of Arizona on politics and statewide elections. So all of our statewide offices, all 90 legislative seats are on the November ballot. Our U.S. Senate race is expected to be the most expensive race in the history of the state of Arizona. Senator Kelly has raised $50 million. And the last, I think, accounting we saw was about $25 million cash on hand. So an incredible amount of money in that U.S. Senate race. And then you have all of the other races. 35% voter turnout in the August primary election, so a significant amount of voters coming to the ballot box. And what we saw from the primary voters was that they opted for new faces, and this is true on both sides of the aisle. We saw Republican and Democratic incumbents lose to political newcomers. That's true here in your district in Prescott Valley. You will actually have 2 new members coming into the January session with the retirement of Senate President Karen Fann. There will be a new leadership race. Well, actually, all leadership will be new in the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle. But specifically for Prescott Valley, I just wanted to note that President Fann has been a wonderful advocate for you, and from our perspective, a loss in terms of her retirement from the body. Moving on to the legislative turnover, we will have at least 37 new legislators, and that would equate to about 41% of turnover of the 90-member body. That number could rise up to 45% of new members, so that just based upon what happens in November. So a lot of new folks that Lourdes and I and the rest of our team at Troy Advocates will be spending time with and getting to know and talking to about your issues. We do expect that the narrow GOP legislative majorities in the House and the Senate will continue and will actually increase in both the House and the Senate. Just going to move really quickly through this. We've already talked about the Senate race. We have all 9 seats of Congress up as well. Particularly important to local government in Prescott Valley is who the next governor will be. And unfortunately, our crystal ball is a little murky, so we're not going to make any predictions tonight. But suffice to say that the next governor of Arizona will be making a tremendous amount of political appointments, new agency heads. I mean, we just had an announcement today from the Arizona Cost Containment Healthcare System that their director will be leaving at the end of the year. So that's a big change for healthcare across the state of Arizona. We can expect new leadership in the Department of Transportation, housing, I mean, myriad of agencies. So that's a lot of new folks to get to know. But with that change in administration comes opportunity as this new governor brings in her priorities and focus. And hopefully, we'll be looking for those points of intersection with Prescott Valley and things that we can help to promote and to elevate with the new executive. And as I noted just briefly, with new leadership in the House and the Senate, in both the majority and minority parties, there's going to be a lot of new folks to get to know each other. And Lourdes is going to talk a little bit about some of the statewide offices.
Well, I would like to make a prediction that our next governor will be a woman, and their first name will start with the K. So that's as clear as I have it. But talking about the other statewide races, I think another important comment to talk about for both the Secretary of State and the Attorney General race, you will notice these are all new folks coming in. We don't have an incumbent trying to be re-elected for those seats. So again, more changes at different levels of government. For the Secretary of State, right now, the law is if we have a vacancy in the governor's seat for whatever reason, our Secretary of State will become the next governor. So that's usually, over the last couple of years, has become, because of that reason, and just generally speaking, it's become much more attention and top of mind of an office. So we have folks running, Mr. Mark Fensham, who has served at the state capitol as a legislator for a couple of years, several years actually. And then we have Mr. Adrian Fontes going on the Democratic side, who's running against Mr. Fincham, and he served as Maricopa County Recorder. So again, for the Attorney General, new faces. None of them have ever been in that office before, but we'll see who the voters decide in November to elect. For the state treasurer and for the superintendent of public instruction, we actually do have the incumbent trying to return and be reelected. So we have current treasurer Kimberly Yee running for state treasurer against Mr. Martin Quesada, who's a legislator who has served at the state capitol for several years. And we have, in the superintendent of public instruction office, our incumbent is Superintendent Kathy Hoffman. She's been in that office for now 4 years, running for re-election, and she's running against a new but not new face, right? A returning face. So Mr. Tom Horn, who has held that office before, as well as the who hold the Attorney General's office before. Sorry. Now going into our legislative district, I want to say it's so great that your legislative delegation, somehow, some way, your number didn't change. You will still be LD1. Every other district, with the exception of this district, through the redistricting process, got a new number. So I used to live in Legislative District 24. Now I'm in Legislative District 5. So for us that have to deal with the numbers a lot, it's really a relief that you have the same number. So thank you. One less to remember. But you know, this is the folks that are seeking to be your next representatives and senators for your delegation. Some of them are new faces, some of them are returning faces, and we hope that a lot of them are going to be strong partners, and we're actively already working with folks here. But just to make a comment, while we're going to have a lot of new faces, we also saw a trend of folks that have served in office at the state capitol and are now returning after taking a break in that career path. And one of them would be Mr. Ken Bennett, who served at the state capitol and served as the president of the state senate. So he'll be making the call for voters to reelect him in November and to reelect him and send him back to the state capitol. So while technically that would be a new face if he was to get in, he knows the process, he knows the system. So it's new now, but he has institutional knowledge. So we'll see what November 8th brings, but this is the folks that are running. And we will look forward after November to come back and visit your town to make sure that we sit with your new delegation and officially talk about the priorities that you guys as a council determine are important to proceed, and with January coming literally down the corner now. Other things that are on the ballot. We don't only have people, we also have issues. So voters will have to vote and decide how they want to deal with it. 2 citizen initiatives were successful in making it to the ballot. One of them deals with predatory debt collection, and this is essentially to provide more clarity into medical billing. So that's one of the initiatives that will be on the November ballot, as well as the voter rights to know. This is Proposition 211 to provide more clarity and transparency when it comes to campaign finance. We won't go into all the different constitutional amendments that will be pursued by, or that voters will have to decide in November, but one to highlight, I think, is Proposition 131. If voters decide to enact this in November, fast forward to 2027, we will then have a lieutenant governor. We won't longer have the Secretary of State filling that position, but instead, whoever runs for governor after this cycle, after the next 4 years, would have to choose a lieutenant governor to run with them and for them to be the same party and work together to get elected. This has been something that it's been in the ballot before, over a decade ago, and it was not successful. This year, the bill or this referendum and constitutional amendment came proposed by 2 legislators, bipartisan, Senator Mesnard, Republican from the East Valley, and Senator Sean Boyd, also Democrat from the East Valley. So it was interesting that they came together and said, we all need to have a lieutenant governor. They agreed. They worked really hard on the language, and if voters agreed to it, in the next cycle, next governor race, we will be voting for a lieutenant governor. other one that we were going to highlight, and you already learned a little bit about, is Proposition 310. This is a proposition that was passed by a referendum or referral that the legislators got together and worked on to establish the additional 1/10 of a cent for a sales tax for fire districts. And it's in an effort to provide more sustainable revenue, a more sustainable source of revenue for fire districts that have limited access to revenue, as it was explained by you, by Chief earlier. So there's going to be 8 different initiatives or, constitutional amendments, referrals that folks will have to vote on. So on top of all the judges that we always are so fun of when we go and vote. So it's a long ballot, but it's a big year. And I think it's important to remember that, it's a general election. October 11 will be the last day for folks to register to vote if they want to vote in the November election. October 12, early ballots will kick in, and then we vote on November 8, which is like Christmas for Julie and I, because then we'll know who we're going to be working with a few days after when all the votes are counted. And then January 9th, we know for sure that will be the first day where the legislature comes back. It's opening day, and they reconvene, and it's usually great day. Everyone comes together. Obviously, this year is going to be a lot of new people, new governor, et cetera. So this is our presentation, and we're happy to take any questions.
Wow, what are you guys going to do with all those freshmen?
We're going to make a lot of new friends.
Questions for our wonderful tri-advocates here?
Did a great job.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, thank you for all your hard work on the fentanyl bill. You guys were awesome. It was very disappointing, but you were awesome. And I want to give a big shout out to Commander Edelstein too, because he was burning the midnight oil also. So he did a great job. And also your work on the threshold bill 2253. That was great too. Thank you. At least we got a little something. We were in a meeting today, Brenda and I and Ryan were in a meeting today at SIMPO, and it was quite interesting because we have a new representative from ADOT. And we were shorted at the very last minute of the budget $2.5 million for our 89A on-ramp and off-ramp project. So it's a $5 million project. We were shorted $2.5 million at the very last minute. I mean, I talked to Vinny today and he said we were guaranteed it and then it didn't appear. So that's going to be a very important project for us, and you have that on here. The only other things that I wanted to point out is on page 3, next to the last bullet where it says providing priority and financing for improvements to I-17, State Route 69, 89, 89A, the benefit of communities, blah, blah, blah. Can we add 169? Is that okay?
Yes, we can do that.
Only because we were in the meeting today and that came out. We do have a funded roundabout there, but it just felt like ADOT wasn't taking responsibility for their projects and kind of throwing it back on the local metropolitan planning organization. So it was kind of a little bit of a bummer today. And I think that was all I have. I appreciate us adding the K-12 because they are in so much need of anything we can get. Oh, I know. The other thing I would love to add somewhere in here is Map Force. So follow, because they are our local drug coalition. They're like the mother of all drug coalitions in the state. If we could add that in, I don't know if it would be 3E maybe? Kind of like you said, follow the League of Cities. We could follow what MapForce does, because they're actually the ones that brought us 2253. So, okay, just those two changes. Okay, anything else? No.
Just gratitude, Vice Mayor, members of the council, management, thank you so much for entrusting us with your legislative representation, and we very much appreciate the direction that you're providing through these legislative priorities.
And we know this isn't set in stone. We know anything can pop up, and you would give a call to Gilbert, and that would be great. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion with those two minor changes in the resolution.
Vice Mayor, I'd like
Yes,
to make a
ma'am.
motion, seconded by another motion, to authorize the mayor for, or in his absence, the vice mayor, to sign resolution number 2022 through 2278, adopting the town's legislative priorities for 2023 by electronic vote.
With two minor corrections, if that's okay, adding 169 in the word math force.
Yes, making additions to 169 and Matt Force
Thank you.
involved in that. Thank you.
And a second by?
I second.
Okay, please vote, council.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, ladies. Have a safe trip home. We're so glad. When I got appointed in 2019, I started the lobbyist. We need a lobbyist. We need a lobbyist. And when Gilbert got here, he picked the best of the best. So thank you. Okay, number 10G, legal representation agreement. Mr. Legler.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. We talked a little bit about this at our work study last week. We've been approached by 3 law firms who are working together, who are involved in some national litigation involving PFAS. And because they had seen that we are involved with that, as well as the city of Prescott, they approached both communities and said, we would propose representing both of you in the litigation that we are pursuing nationwide against a number of the companies that have produced PFAS over the years and who might be found to be liable for having done so negligently. They said, look, if we get a recovery, we would take a percentage of that, but if we don't get a recovery, then it would be free, and you wouldn't have any responsibility for the payment. So last week, that same proposal was considered by the city of Prescott, their city council, and they approved entering into an agreement. And that agreement is in your packet from these three law firms. And as staff, we've looked at the agreement. It looks reasonable to us, and we do suggest that if you're interested in doing so, that we go ahead and enter into this agreement with these 3 law firms.
Questions for staff?
So are they going after companies who made products that contain it that then got into the water, or however it got into the ground? Because obviously it's not like there was a factory in Prescott Valley that was making PFAS, and so I'm just kind of wondering, like, who are the bad guys in the scenario?
In this case, these are actually companies that produce the actual product, the PFAS, and then it found its way into other products. And so I think they're mostly going after these folks because they're going to argue that they knew at a certain point that it was dangerous and yet didn't let everyone else know. And so those are the kinds of arguments they'll be making. But the main one is 3M and DuPont, of course. DuPont's been involved in some other issues, and then a number of smaller ones.
Okay, thank you.
So are they manufacturing in the United States?
They are. They were, at least they were.
Okay, because we heard from the state rep that in 2012.
That they had stopped doing
Right,
so.
okay.
Right.
So in other jurisdictions have been successful in winning against those organizations?
I believe some other lawsuits have been successful. These lawsuits are still being brought, and they're being brought actually in South Carolina in front of a district court judge who is trying to consolidate a bunch of cases in that jurisdiction. They may decide to file it here in our state court or file it there, and we'll listen to what they have to say as the best approach.
Great. Any other questions, council? No? I'd like a motion, please. Thank you, Mr. Legler. Ms. Dickinson.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to authorize the mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, to sign a legal representation agreement with 3 law firms serving as co-counsel to file litigation on behalf of the town regarding PFAS and related chemicals on a contingent fee basis by electronic vote.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote, council.
Councilmember Packard, how do you wish to vote? That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, and then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
That passes unanimously, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Everybody go home.